it back, but it's more than basic. It's a portion of his rap, but the core is ancient. It's imported like a pack of some more observations. They're important like the fact that we're bored of fake shit. More creative, have the floor, so take it. Travel to the core is a normal placement. Tattoos on my arm and
morning and season's greetings. I do hope you guys are ready for this season, the Christmas season. You know he's coming. And if you want to be considered a good person, a good parent, if you want your kids to love you, then you got to pay the troll toll. You got to pay your tithe of milk and cookies to the great one, Santa Claus. Jesus is supportive of Santa Claus. It's his birthday, and that's what he wants you to do with your life. He wants you to make sure that you have informed your children that a fat white man is who determines if they're naughty or nice for the entire year. I mean, that is what we say, right? Am I wrong about that?
No, you're pretty white.
That's what we say. That's what we say here at Tattoo with Children. That's what you listen to. You listen to Tattoo with Children. I am your host, FlavaRay, and Seat A. Seat B is noticeably vacant today, but we still have the man who connects me to you, the listener, my dear friends. It is CIO No Pain. Mike, we got a special guest going on today, right?
Yes, we do.
I got to tell you, this is my first on-air interview I've ever done in my life, so I'm a little nervous. I'm a little apprehensive, a little anxious. You'll be great.
I believe in you.
Oh, I believe in me too, because I'm dope as fuck. But and this guy is a guy that I actually know, and he puts me. His voice itself puts me at ease, and so I'm looking forward to speaking with him. I haven't spoken with him in a long time. Let's go ahead and get him on here. Dan, are you there, buddy?
I'm here.
All right, that's Dan Harbucks. Those of you who have listened to every episode of the podcast, A, God bless you, and B, you've already heard Dan's voice before. Dan Harbuck is the younger brother to Pirate Ben. And they're two of the 8 Harbuck boys. You might have heard of that gang back in the Old West, the Harbuck gang. And they are a longtime friends of mine. It's good to hear from him again. He used to live here in Texas. Now he lives out in the Californias. How's it going out there, Dan?
Yeah, it's going well. There's 8 of us total, but there's only 7 boys. Don't forget the sister Anna.
Well, I thought there was 9 with Anna.
Oh yeah, right.
No, there's 7. There we go. So it's 8 boys. It's 7 boys total and Anna.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. I was like, yeah. It's once I see all of you together in one room, I lose count very quickly. It's really weird. So what took you out to California? You're from the backwoods, the rest of us, but now you're out with your family out in California. Dan, how many kids you have again? I've lost count of them too.
I have 4. So 2 girls and 2 boys. The girls are on the ends, the first and fourth, so they kind of keep the masculine energy
bookended.
Check a little bit, yeah. So
I gotta tell you, your kids are probably the most beautiful, energetic kids I've ever seen. They're balls of energy. So I know that California must have felt that as soon as you hit the state border, they knew something was different.
Yeah, I like them. They're good people.
That's very important, Dan. That you like your kids.
I like them. So what took you out there, Dan? What are you doing out there? I'm not even sure.
Yeah, I work at a year-round camp and conference center just north of L.A., and I run their activities and kind of recreation programs. So people come up of different either organizations or spiritual beliefs. They'll they either value it or feel like it's important enough to kind of get away, and so they'll come up to this camp and either spend time in silence or in community with other people, or and a lot of times some activities and just having fun as part of that. So I kind of oversee any of the recreational things that they might do, hiking trails, zip line, just kind of playing outside. Like that's kind of what I oversee.
Now you were kind of doing that while you were here. Is it I guess a smaller scale? You're doing it you were doing it here at SFA at Nacogdoches with I know you had the ropes course here. And there was, I think was there a zip line too? Was it we did the zip line thing too?
Yeah, right.
I know my wife had done it with you as part of a class that she was taking. We went out there later on, like after you're gone to California, and they were doing like the zip line and things. My kids had done the zip line a couple of times. They were like, "Hey, you want to do the ropes course or something, Ray?" And I was like, you know what? If Dan was here, but with Dan not being here, I really don't see the point. You know, the only reason why I would take my life into my hands and get my fat ass off that far off the ground would be to impress Dan Harbuck. And since he's not here, I'm not going to bother. I'm just gonna watch you do it, and then next time Dan is in town, then maybe I'll do a ropes course.
Yeah.
But you know what I have done, and this was actually your influence. I did get my daughter into jiu-jitsu courses.
No way.
Yeah, she's on her third stripe right now, and that was totally you doing those courses with kids and like showing me like this is actually a good thing for kids to be involved in. Like she was in a different martial art before. She was doing Krav Maga, and that's all about survival and controlled violence, whereas jiu-jitsu, I think, is much more of a discipline and a sport. And so it was a good move to get her into that. But I wouldn't have done it if it hadn't been for you.
And that's awesome. I think outside of like my work in the outdoors, like as far as something that's had to teach me outside of like working in the outdoors, which has had a lot to teach me personally, I think jiu-jitsu is probably the second thing. And I think a lot of it was either indirectly or directly, right? Like indirectly, I think it was benefiting me a lot. But then now that as I've gotten a little bit older, I think I recognize the benefits more when I get, out of balance or I'm too much in my head, just like processing, making up a story about, whatever is happening in my life. So I recognized it more. I recognize it more now. And I'm like, man, I really need, and it doesn't have to be jiu-jitsu, but I recognize that jiu-jitsu is a place where I can not only help that, but I mean, it sort of comes at a price because you get your ass kicked. But
yeah. That's one of the great things about it is because if when you're down there rolling around, getting sort of manhandled, you really can't. You have to be in the moment, Like you can't be thinking about what's going to happen in the immediate future, and the past has already been rolled away on the mat. It's like all you can think about is how do I get in a position right now to make sure I have a good performance here. And my daughter gets that from me, where she has a lot of anxiety about the past and the future, and so anything that gets her out of that space is good. And jiu-jitsu has been perfect for that. Speaking of which, part of this podcast is really about personal growth and the things that get us towards feeling better and being better people. And whenever I think about that, I think about you a lot because, we did a few of those, with your dad, the men's conferences, and not the conference. It wasn't a conference. It was just like a men meeting, I guess. Out at his place, and we got together and did some rituals and things like that, and for whatever reason, you and I were paired up several times. Yeah. And so whenever I think of, but it was such a calming space with you there. Do you still do things like that? I know you're doing the outside retreat, and you have the getting people close to nature. Do you still like meditate, things like that?
Yeah, it's not as regularly, as I'm aware that I need to, but yeah, it is. I'll take some time to sit and be quiet and and either, focus on my breathing or, I think thinking about, either jujitsu or other things, it's helped me, I think, just be more aware of my body in times where I get out of balance. And so, I'm not aware of that a ton, but the times that I recognize, like, hey, I'm out of whack a little bit. I think meditation, it's really just the main thing that I go to.
So you're able to recognize when you're out of balance, and how do you recognize it? Like, I'm asking for me. Like, I have no idea. Like, I don't know if I'm out of balance until literally I'm like hyperventilating. Like, I had to have an anxiety attack before I actually want to do something about it. So are you able to, like, I mean,
no,
what is is there a warning sign I should be watching for?
No, I would probably say it's, like it's similar in a way. Like, I mean, your body's either saying something. I mean, I get good feedback from my family, if I'm, come home from work and, little things that really shouldn't, like,
bother you,
tick me off, right? So I start getting some feedback, right, that I'm maybe a little bit out of whack, if just maybe things I've processed during the day, or sort of the energy, like, how much energy I'm running with during the day, like in meetings and, and working through conflict or something like that. And then to get home.
And one of your kids, like, barrels into your crotch, and you're like, hold on.
Well, even just you walk in, and then if it's like, some little thing about the kids or the condition the house is in or something like that, if I'm still running pretty hot, I guess as energy goes, like, if I start hollering at the kids, like, as far as getting something cleaned up, like, that's a pretty good kind of indication.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the family's kind of a good, like, it helps me,
like a barometer.
Apparently I am permanently out of whack.
I was about to say that too. I said there's a lot of people out here that are just absolutely always in that state. They would, like, if they weren't yelling, their kids would be like, "What's wrong with you? Like, you haven't screamed at me in like 15 minutes. There's something wrong."
Yeah.
I remember one of the clearest memories I have. The clearest memories of your kids I have is when I think your oldest son, like, came out of the coffee shop. And he pointed his head down and ran straight ahead without any idea where he was going, and just slammed into Ben's crotch. It was hilarious. Like, it was that just popped into my head because of just thinking about, like, coming into the house with your kids and you're tired, and that kid just comes and just slams you full on. Hey, Daddy! Ugh.
Yeah, Luke runs.
Yeah, Luke.
Yeah, he's a big runner, so I can see that happening.
How old is he now? God, how long was that ago?
Yeah, he's 9. So
holy crap! Yeah, I guess he is. Audrey's 10 now. She just turned 10.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's. Do your kids do martial arts too? Your kids do?
No, they've gone through a few different seasons. I mean, they sort of have fair game to attack me.
Whenever they feel like.
Right. Usually how it works is I'll attack one of them, typically the youngest. I'll try to pick on the weakest one.
Right.
She's not weak at all, but I'll take her on, because I can.
You can manhandle her easily.
Right? And then that's like a homing beacon.
Right.
The rest of them, they come from wherever. It's like they could be on the other side of the house, and they just know. Dad has engaged one of us, and then I've got the 11-year-old, I've got Luke and Aiden, like, so, and then I'm really fending off for the whole family.
That's good training. That's good ninja training right there. That should be training. So somebody picks on weakest one, you swarm. That's what you do.
Yeah, I don't even know how it works. They don't. I think it's just. They know they got each other's backs, I guess. I think
that's homework training. It's like, it's probably how you guys are too. Like, I don't think I've ever seen one of you guys get into any sort of scrape where at least 3 of you didn't come out of somewhere.
Yeah, that's right. Esperanza is probably, the other kids have a few things they're doing. She does ballet right now, so
Okay, cool.
sort of funny that like when I do my Brazilian jiu-jitsu classes, so I'll go to her ballet class. She goes there for an hour, and then I'll take her to my jiu-jitsu class because we live about 40 minutes from town, in essence, so where the classes are. So we'll drive in. She'll go to her ballet class, and then she gets to go to my jiu-jitsu class. So it's always funny.
She's
to
learning
see the
jiu-jitsu and ballet. That's going to make it interesting. That's going to make it an interesting PE course. Do your kids go to school, or are you homeschool? I homeschool mine.
Charter schools are a big thing, or not a big thing just in California, but they are a little bit bigger in California, I think, maybe than in Texas. But so they're part of a charter school just where we live. As far as the area, there's one really good school that's there. And Andrew and I, just with moving here, we've kind of processed when and if we would put the kids in the local school. But charter schools are really good. Either they're coming out to the area in some capacity, or we'll take the kids in and they can go to some classes, and then just some of the other benefits as far as the structure and content. And
like we had a hard problem with like scheduling with school. It was like starting. It was such a hard thing trying to get the kids up early in the morning, and then not coming to get like that whole like 7 a.m. to 3 or 4 in the afternoon schedule seemed kind of off to me for kids, particularly my kid. And so like that was probably the main barrier, because she went to school for 3 years, first, second, and third grade at a private school. But even that was burdensome as far as her schedule concerned. Like she was always tired,
Right.
It's like, and so like it seemed somehow easier to not have her in, which is weird, because you think about schools as making parenting easier. For us, it made it easier to parent with her not being in school.
Yeah.
Like she wasn't she wasn't the type to fit into that general mold, and so we're trying to, like I was thinking at the time. I really want her to be able to take care of herself at all times. I should probably show her that you can make decisions that aren't what everyone else says that you should be doing, if it's to take care of yourself. And so it's kind of been a theme that I've been running through this podcast for a while. Self-care. To that end.
Say that one more time. Say that sentence.
It's a theme I've been running through as self-care. So I've for the last few episodes. Probably since episode 40, this is episode 46, we ran into self-care at least twice during each of the episodes, because I think it's an important topic, and that is being sort of swept under the rug, because it underlines a lot of the issues that we're running into in society in general. And so everything I think about, I think about, if it's a job and you like doing your job, is that activity of your job also a part of your self-care, So I was like, talking to you, it seemed like a lot of your job is also a part of your self-care. It's like, nature, and it's, silence, and it's, somewhat meditative.
Yeah, a lot of it is, it's hopefully self-reflective, like you're either learning about yourself. So, you're just reflecting on either what you're learning or what's sort of happening to you. So, or hopefully, that's what you are. I think we do a really good job of trying to make everything about someone else instead of, learning about ourselves. So, something I've been sort of working on maybe the last 3 to 6 months is trying to get more educated about trauma, and some people might call it like stress injuries or mental health, and how that kind of works into self-care and taking care of yourself. So
that's interesting that you mentioned that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been. I have obviously I have a lifetime to learn some things, but we just we're connected to an inner city or organization that. So we have a lot of urban and inner city organizations, churches or otherwise that come up to the camp, and then we also have just young leaders and staff that also come up and will work at the camp from time to time, and even just being exposed to trauma and people's pain and other things like more traumatic either injuries or just and like you were saying, or some of what we talked about too, is just where people's mental health is today. So it's kind of really provoked me to do a better job and become more educated in self-care, even as far as like mental health goes and dealing with trauma, or some people might call it like stress injuries. It's not. I think it's hard maybe for people to say PTSD, because it's associated with the military, but to say that there's either stress injuries or like just trauma that happens to people. So I got a ways to go, but I'm really trying to be more educated in it. So
we're gonna talk some more about that in just a second. We're gonna take a quick break.
My name ain't Mikey, but yeah, you know why? Because I don't give a fuck. That's why it doesn't.
And you're back with Tattoo with Children. We're talking to Dan Harbuck, brother to Pirate Ben. Dan, we were just talking. You mentioned trauma, and you mentioned trauma in children, which is definitely one of the places that piques my interest. I work with juvenile offenders, and so one of the first things that you notice about kids that make mistakes is that it's hardly ever a mistake that they made. They are acting out of a mistake that somebody else made. Either their parents, are involved in things and expose them to things, or their parents have abused them, or someone else. A lot of times it happens in the schools, where a teacher will do something and take their anger out on the kid or what have you, and these create these little points of stress in the kid that the kid has to react to. And since they're children, they don't react, with an adult's mindset, with an adult maturity, and so they make mistakes. They lash out, they get into fights. They'll steal a car, they'll set a trash can on fire, whatever. And so we start to, we're trained to look and ask about those points of stress, those points of trauma. And it's been studied that 90% of juvenile offenders, kids that are in a detention or a juvenile prison setting, they have a form of PTSD. Where they've had a traumatic event happen to them, or several traumatic events happen to them, or they've witnessed a traumatic event, someone getting hurt or killed, or, things that they can't sleep well. And that trauma is the root of a lot of their behavior. And I think that is swept under the rug a lot of the time when we're talking about children. We say, well, there was a car wreck and the parents died, but the child is fine. They're with their grandparents, and we expect that child to do great. When in reality, that kid is now in a prime position to be put into a juvenile system, like the prison system, just because they're acting out of trauma. And that's something that we don't, we understand to an academic sense, but I don't think we work with it long enough in a real world mental health state sense. Does that make any sense? It's like you were saying, like they bring kids to you, to your program, and you're trying to help them kind of work through some of their issue in a short term. I think because we don't do that for ourselves, we don't think to do it for the kids. You know?
Well, what's kind of unique with us is that just being in a more isolated, so the camps, it's in a small community, but it is a little bit isolated. There's still Wi-Fi, the cell phone signal is a little bit poor.
Which is good.
Which is kind of ideal for some people in getting away. But if you come to work at an isolated place, even if you just moved to a small town, even smaller than Lufkin, you went to, I don't know, Huntington or something like that. If you went to a small town that has less, maybe there's less going on, so then less noise. So then some of the things that are either going on in your life that you were able to cope with, either by noise or like, my, phone, like constant access to entertainment or, whatever it was that you used to cope, right? With less noise in a way, wouldn't those things start to surface a little bit more? Like, not that you would have to deal with them, but they would, like, your own life would bubble up a little bit more.
I think you could actually hear yourself. You could hear yourself think for once. One of the things that bothers me about today is that like we have so much stimulation from our phones and from television, from every source of input. It's so much more flooded than it used to be that you don't even notice if it's you that's the problem. Like maybe it's your trauma, maybe it's trauma that happened to, maybe it's the fact that the president's getting impeached. It's like that's stressful for a nation. Maybe I'm feeling that. It's real hard to pick yourself out of the noise.
Right. And I think for me, questioning, like you were talking about, with some of the people that you work with, like being able to either ask a question or have a perspective that kind of sees through the initial layer, right, of like what's happening. So you're not just dealing with the outside set of circumstances or like what the person's done, but like a question or a perspective that sort of like cuts through the first couple of layers of, bullshit, whatever that is, to try to like, hey, we know that this is what we're seeing, but we know enough to know that that's not really the only thing that's going on here, But, and I think like some of the books I've read and even if you listen to Byron Katie, she has this process called the work. Like those questions and others have allowed me to, to
say that name again.
It's Byron. This lady, Byron Katie. She has this process called the work.
How you spell that?
Spell her name?
Yeah.
Or
Byron is it?
Yeah, Byron.
Okay, Byron Katie.
Right, Katie, Katie. Okay. So it's just her process called the work. So it's her line of questioning. So the questions are: is it true? Is it really true? Who would I be? If it wasn't true, I'm probably butchering it just a little bit, but who would I be if it wasn't? And then you sort of, the ending is like something that you actually turn around. So, could the truth or what you sort of end up with be actually the opposite of what you think it is? So it challenges you to question, in my own life, like, so I'll make a statement, about my life in a way, like, this is what's wrong with my life, is that I don't, have something I need. Well, is that true? And I might really think that that's true, right?
Right.
Then I'll even ask it. The process asks it again.
Is that really true?
True. Is it really true? Like, let's really get it down to the fact that, my life is in shambles just because of this one thing.
Yeah. That's our big as adults today. That's our big problem, is we want to boil everything down to that one. If I fix this one thing, if I lose 15 pounds, or if I can just get that job.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. If I had something was different was going on at work, or my spouse is treating me differently, or something like that.
Yeah, we love to blame our spouses. That's a big one. We love that shit.
Yeah, right. So then it just sort of says, who would I be, or what would it be like if I did not believe that, this person was the key to, this person changing or me losing the 15 pounds, if that was the key to, my happiness or something. And then you explore that. What would I be if it wasn't, if I didn't believe that this huge roadblock was, stopping me from everything. And then even the last one sort of flips it around, that instead of that person or that thing, it sort of makes you look at the exact opposite of what you're saying and see if even some of that is true. And oftentimes it is. Like, this person standing in my way. Well, no, maybe in actuality, I'm standing in my way, or I might even be standing in that person's way, because of my perspective. So like questions like that, like, I mean, you don't get that in school, right? Like,
no, you
the
don't.
ability, or at least the training, and maybe that's what, meditation and other things do, to like give you either a questioning or a process to kind of see through your own BS, or at least continue to use it so it actually becomes like a strength or ability, so that as you get older, obviously with even like jujitsu, you get a skill, but you don't know how to use it, right? You gotta like work on it. You gotta practice it. You gotta put it into play, and you gotta like have it fall apart completely, and then you just gotta get back up and do it again until, hopefully.
See, where in our lives, Dan? Where in our lives will we ever get that? Like, we never have, like, the people that knew how to do this, if they existed, they didn't tell us. Like, that's what's always stunning to me, because what you just said, like, that is a process of taking what is a possible false statement that is literally killing your self-worth. Like, if a kid comes to me and says, I'm a terrible kid, I'm a bad kid, which I hear that a lot. And I'll say, no, you're not a bad kid. You couldn't possibly be a bad kid because you don't even know enough to be bad. It's like you don't even know enough, have enough knowledge to make a true mistake. You're just a kid. But they've been told several times what a bad kid is, what a bad kid looks like, how a bad kid acts, and never been told, you don't fit that. You know what I mean? Right. It's like they've never been told that if you take all the characteristics I've lined up and compare them to you, you don't match. Like, they didn't get that part of it. They just got the part where it said you're a bad kid. You did a bad thing, and therefore you're less worthy of this. Here's your punishment. No one, I know for me growing up, I never heard anything like this as a kid. Whereas, like, what are you? Oh, you're even something positive. You're smart. Is that true? Yeah, I'm smart. Is that really true? Well, people tell me that. Okay. People tell you that. Does that make it true? You know what I mean? Like, critical thought questions. They're not encouraged. And if you normally they're actually discouraged in my experience.
Yeah, and that's so hard because, as far as probably with society, you need people that toe that line of like what's acceptable and what's not. Like, so you need, we need a certain structure, but then what we don't have nearly as strongly, right, is those people that see through that and say, yeah, you made a mistake. Yeah, or you had something happen in your life that, that was traumatic that you'll always sort of carry with you, but they see through that to something deeper, right? We need that as heavily, and maybe that's what the role that, religion or other faiths have tried to play, but not nearly as strong as we need them, right? Because you need to have a certain structure that's there, but people that see through it and say, and I know that's a lot of what you guys talk about here, right? Is not just getting the surface stuff, but like the ability to see through, whether it's in your own life or in someone else's life.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what we try to get to. But I find myself like fighting through the programming. like you just mentioned religion, and I almost got a migraine thinking about how many times a preacher or a deacon told me I was wrong, about me. It's like, man, I have this feeling that I'm one of those people that like to hang out with criminals. I think I like to hang out with gangsters. It's like, no, you're a smart kid. You don't do that sort of thing. I'm like, no, I get that. I mean, I'm not a criminal. That's not what I'm saying. I am saying, though, that there's something about me that is drawn to a more transgressive lifestyle. You can't look at that. You just got to pray more. It's like, well, according to the book, didn't Jesus hang out with prostitutes? Isn't one of those criminals? Jesus was the Son of God. You ain't Son of God, son. Don't be think. I granted all these roadblocks from just asking the question about me. They already knew the answer, and my answers were wrong. I think now it's more institutionalized. I think now that they get that, instead of having to go to the church to get it, they're getting it directly from the schools. It's like they don't even want the kids to be able, and I'm saying kids, but I really mean me. I really mean me. I mean Mike. I mean you. I mean Ben. I think that we are just as entrapped in this amber as the kids are. We just been trapped for longer that we can sort of see. We can sort of look around.
Right. And you want to ask those adults or people, our either peers or whatever, like, hey, is that actually really working for you? Like, we're just used to repeating or regurgitating things.
I'll tell people all the time. I was like, guys, tell you the truth is I don't recommend marriage. They say, what? You've been married 16 years. I say, yeah, no, I don't recommend it. Well, are you not happy? No, I'm deliriously happy with my marriage. I just don't think that it is a thing that works automatically, and I don't think anyone else is willing to look at it long enough to see it works for them. So you're going to get into it and it's not going to work because you don't think about it. Whereas it's like I'm not saying it's just because I do it doesn't mean that you should. I wouldn't recommend it.
Right.
Yeah.
Even that process of you saying that helps. It might help in someone's mind sort of flip them to the opposite side of marriage, and to be in a place where they've never thought about it. Right. Well, and then you could be like, well, why would you? Don't just run into marriage just because that's what everybody else is doing. Why would you actually, commit or make a lifetime commitment?
Yeah, it goes back to the work, right? It said, well, I want to be married because I love her. Is that true?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, true. I love her. No. Do you want to be married to her because you love her? Is that true? Oh, well, yeah. Is it really true, or did your dad just tell you that that's what you're supposed to do if you loved a girl that you just got married?
The interesting thing about that is it goes back to something that we were talking about on, I think, the last podcast, which was we were talking about the idea of self-care. If you even make that decision, that commitment in your brain in self-care to go, I am going to do some self-care, the next immediate question is, what do I do? Right? And my response to why it's so difficult for me to make that commitment is because when I ask myself that question, I don't know the answer. I don't know what I'm going to do for self-care. I literally don't know how to care for myself.
Right.
And the reason for that was because even if I try to do something and it doesn't work, I feel like I've wasted my time.
Yes.
That's got applicability here to this whole, even this topic of marriage. The reason I think a lot of people go to it is because it is the assumed step.
Right, the end result of the first date.
If you don't take that step, then everything you've done up to that point
was a waste of time.
Is a waste of time.
That makes sense, Dan?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's the wrong way of thinking about it myself, personally. I think that you can be in a relationship with a person and not have to take it to the quote-unquote next step, at least not unexamined. I mean, I think that's what we're talking about, right? Like we're sort of getting into the idea that a life unexamined is not a life lived yet.
Well, Mike, are you talking about, so like when you say something works, right? Like, I mean, we're saying like what's success, right? What works, what made it, right? Like,
yeah, is if I'm doing self-care, right, then I decide that I'm going to take some time for myself to care for myself. Does that mean going and getting a massage? Does that mean going and playing around at golf? What does that actually mean? What does it mean to care for yourself? And the discussion ended up being something along the lines of, well, why don't you just pick something and do it?
Right. Yeah, that's eventually what Ben came to, was you just had to make a decision, and that would clear up most of the doubt.
Right. And it's like, so if it doesn't fulfill you, if it doesn't fill your cup, so to speak, right? What's the problem with that? Who cares? And my response being, well, then I've wasted time.
Yeah. And my response was and is, you don't waste time by doing things that didn't actually work out. You actually gained knowledge, and you gained whatever that experience was. Even if it didn't do the thing that you wanted to do, it did something.
Yeah, like the process of not the process of elimination necessarily, but like the process of getting to like learn more about yourself. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly.
Right?
Like, exactly.
Yeah.
Like you're examining that thing that makes you.
Yeah, even if you know that, hey, this like I tried this, but it just didn't hit the spot for me. It didn't care for me as well as I needed to. And then you try something else, even though you may never come back to that, the fact that you tried it. And
it was worthwhile at that point, right?
Yeah, right.
I mean, like I should have, like in this vein, I should have tried the ropes course. I should have went ahead, took the plunge, which is took the plunge up off the ground, and done the ropes course. Probably made a fool of myself, maybe gotten injured, but at least then I would know, A, I don't like the ropes course, never do that shit again, or B, I love the ropes course and I should do it every other month. Now it's one of those things I still have on my agenda to do. I still have to try the ropes course, but I'm still waiting for you to come back for that, Dan. I want you to know that. All right, we're going to take a quick break here, and we'll be right back.
Carry the club like Neanderthal, the choir got everybody dancing, dog. Y'all on that X, I'm a sentinel, standing tall, no time to stand still. Please don't meander, dog. They throwing jazz at me to challenge my rap savvy. I sway like Callaway.
And we're back with Tattoo with Children, talking to Dan Harbuck about self-care and self-examination, one of my personal favorite subjects. We were, where to leave it off there, Dan? I just had a brain fart.
No, I was thinking like something I run into a lot with, at least with people in the outdoors, or doing, a zip line or something like that, where it's something that's more intense. I think there's a stereotype that, well, because it's scary, it's good for you. But hopefully, I mean, when I get into instances like that and people make the decision not to go, they look at it and they don't want to climb 25 feet in the air and go off the zip line. They don't want to climb 50 feet high and jump off of something. Well, then great. You don't have to. I mean, you don't have to do like something like this. But hopefully, you just keep the conversation going. Well, but what is it that scares you? Like, you don't have to do this, but
right.
Like, this is just one way of hopefully getting to know yourself in a different way. Whether you do this and you say, hey, I'll never do this again. Like, it was a great experience, but it was just. I mean, it was awesome. It's just one thing I'll do and probably never do again.
Yeah,
or if it's something that you try that you repeat a few times, but it's just that process of like, hey, you don't have to, but what is it that scares you? Because hopefully this is just one way to learn something about yourself. Whether you complete the activity or not, to me, it doesn't necessarily matter. It's more of what you might have learned about yourself or be learning about yourself that you take back, that you take into your sort of regular life and maybe approach it a little differently. So
I imagine that is one of the quickest ways of gaining self-knowledge is by doing something dangerous. Like, I mean, I've done a few things dangerous, but like I remember them as being blurs. You know, I don't think I've ever done like I've never done skydiving or surfing or something like, you know, something where I had to be in a controlled, dangerous situation for a long period of time. It was, to me, danger has always happened as a surprise. So to be able to like to be in a semi-safe environment, I imagine, is very helpful in self-examination. You know, you can be up there, fall off, and you know you're able to learn because you're not actually going to die. You know.
Yeah, I think it's where I first learned, and then I think I continue to hopefully like reinforce it in my life, is where to ask questions. Because I don't know that growing up a lot. I mean, my parents did in terms of like jobs. It would be like, you know, go try this, you know, summer job, or got to try this, and then what that experience was like, or what I learned about myself. But certainly in the outdoors, I think going through the process, you know, you're standing 25 feet high, you know, talking with someone, the staff, you know, instructor that's there or something. But it's that process of, hey, what's this like for you right now? Like a part of sort of questioning either through the process or after it that says, I'm not really interested just in, hey, was it, you know, fun? I mean, we are. It's like, hey, was that fun?
Right.
But the answer is always yes, you know, or no, that was terrible. Not, it's always, you know, like, yes, it was great, or no, it's terrible. Well, if the questioning sort of stops there, then you haven't learned anything.
Right, you haven't gotten anything out of it. You have to have a conversation, right?
Yeah, that's all of our successes, right? Whether it's in, you know, work or like family or others, like if you're able to question it or learn to question it in the middle of it, hey, what are we learning through this process? I think it's a whole lot more rewarding and rich. But I don't know that there's a lot of places that kind of help train you. Like, so this has been one for me to like help me reflect during it. What am I learning, or what did I learn about it? And sometimes I may not come away with very much, right? Like,
right, yeah, no, you may come up with almost like I think that's one of the things that bothers people about having conversations in general. People are afraid to have conversations because it's what Mike's saying. They're afraid of wasting time. If I have a conversation and I don't get anything out of the conversation, then I just wasted however long the time was being that conversation. Whereas my motto in this podcast, and honestly with everything else that I do, is that there's never been a harmful conversation. You know, if a conversation happened, then it was helpful just because the conversation is a thing that occurred. I think conversations, one of the things that occurs the least often in today's society, and I think it's one of the big problems. And you just outline a perfect example of how the lack of conversation would be a problem. Somebody goes up on, you know, up on the zip lines or up on the roast course, and they have a anxiety-filled time, which really can be a traumatic event if they don't talk about it afterwards, right? You know, if they had a really bad time, if they just like, you know, clammed up, climbed down and ran away, then they're going to be afraid of ropes or heights or whatever for the rest of their existence. Whereas if they're able to talk to you and get everything into perspective and put everything in its proper place, then it doesn't become a wound or a scar. Mm-hmm. You know, like I think that in society today, we have so many instances like that where we had a bad experience of some kind and we didn't talk to anybody about it, and so it just scabbed over. And now that trauma is a thing that happens. I think it happens a lot in the holidays, right? You know, like typically people will report a good deal of stress around the holidays. I talked a good bit about it during Thanksgiving. You know, I did a whole Thanksgiving thing where I was talking about just the kind of the stress and the trauma of getting through Thanksgiving because of how often we don't say to the people that we love that this is stressful. This is, you know, like this is fun. I'm glad to see you, but you know, you got to understand this is also not all that much fun. And and they could say the same to you. Like, if we could talk that part out, then we could probably have a much better Thanksgiving. I think it even gets worse when we get into Christmas, because of what I was talking about at the beginning, where everything is about commercialism and characters that were made by Madison Avenue, and we know that's wrong. We know that that's a shameless money grab, but we don't want to say that too loud because we don't want our children to be traumatized by, thinking that we don't have money or, what have you. And so we just sort of let that build up until we no longer like a great holiday like Christmas, which is a great holiday, in my opinion. I really like Christmas, but there's a lot of stress that goes along with it. I mean, like, how do you feel about the holidays, Dan?
Yeah, I think I'm right there with you. I mean, there are a lot of things I think that are great about rituals, and certainly, it's something we do every year, and even maybe sacred is not the right way to do it, but there's something, magical, at least in my, maybe it's the songs you sing or the lights, or like we're really good at creating this story, right, about the holidays. They're the lights and the singing and the sort of
the atmosphere that we make about it, right?
Yeah, there is a lot there, but I think you're right. There's a lot that gets that can easily get lost. Either we're avoiding it or just not talking about it, or the damage that gets done in our pursuit of what we think needs to happen. I think I could probably be this Christmas. I think I could probably be more honest about what like how I need to take care of myself, right? Yeah. Like just whether it's rest or just like eating good enough food, because I know that if I don't take care of myself, just in little ways, those basic things like rest, drinking water,
I'm with you.
Eating good food, like, I'm not the nicest person to be around, right? So I know that I could do, and it's not like I don't need to tell anybody necessarily that. I mean, I could, we could have this conversation, but I think even just being honest with myself of like, hey, Dan, you need to do a better job of taking care of yourself as you get into the holidays, because it's all unique, right? We're not at our regular jobs. I'm not at home. Right. We're over with families staying for a few days. And so just being honest about what I need to do so I can be a decent human being.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Like, like I work over the holidays, but my wife doesn't. She's like, she's off, and other people are able to take some time off during this period, and you would think that would be the time when they get rest. But I think a lot of the time, this is a time when they don't get rest. Like, this is the time when they rest the least. Because now, you're home when you're not supposed to be home. And so you start wanting to do things you don't normally do just because you're home. So you're like, well, since I'm home, I want to get up early and make breakfast for the kids. So, well, that's a nice thing to do for the kids, but it's so far outside of your schedule that now you're getting less sleep than you would if you went to work. That sort of thing, I think, is where we start messing up. We start wanting to instead of taking care of ourselves, we want to take extra better care of the people around us and shortchange ourselves even more than we normally do. And so that sort of builds up in the holidays. Like if I was to give somebody advice on how to cope with the holidays, I would say, first off, what is that thing that you do for Christmas, for example, that you don't do for any other holiday? And it's stressful. For some people, that'll be cooking dinner. I would say don't cook dinner. Just go to Chinese food. For that day instead. They'll be open.
That's what I think we're doing.
Yeah, that's the, and I recommend that wholeheartedly because A, they'll take good care of you because it's a holiday, and B, you'll actually be able to enjoy it.
Yeah.
You know, taking like that, it's those little things like that, I think, that take the trauma out of these holidays. We can actually enjoy them again. When we were kids, remember we were kids and we just loved Christmas? You know, like when's the last time, Dan? Like, when's the last time you really enjoyed Christmas lights? For me, it's been years.
Yeah, I haven't slowed down to
Yeah, you know,
I'm just angry because I installed Christmas lights and I really I loved it. You know,
Yeah.
But I installed them too close to the driveway, and I think our babysitter done run them over. They still work because they're LEDs. That's the great thing about it. They're LEDs.
Yeah.
Right. But I'm like, well, dang, my decorations. Thankfully, our Olaf decoration is still standing after all this rain and cold.
Yeah, man, I used to love Christmas lights. I used to love watching them. We used to drive around town. Do you ever, when you were here, Lufkin, Dan, did you ever drive around Inglewood during Christmas time?
Yeah.
Yeah, and the whole neighborhood is lit up. That the streets are literally, the neighborhood are just lights, all this as far as you can see. I mean, as a kid, it felt like you were in a land of lights.
Right.
I used to love Christmas lights. And then I grew up and I started having to put up Christmas lights. And now, like, I can barely stand and look at the things. You know, it's like it's got nothing to. They're still magical. They're still the great lights.
We may be seeing a shift too, at least in my neighborhood. You know, for the last few years, it hasn't really been a whole lot. Not a lot of people doing lights.
Right.
But this year, my house and the 4 surrounding houses have really, you know, they've come out, they've put lights up, they've done something. Now, I will give a little bit of fairness to the house across the street. It's inhabited by, you know, senior level college students. They don't ever take their lights down. So there was an easy job for them, right?
Yeah.
But they still go through the process of making sure the timer's set up and they get turned on, which is nice.
Now, see, this is one of the ways I say the kids have got it right. Why take the lights down?
Right.
Is there a reason to take the lights down? Are you afraid of your neighbors think you're lazy?
Well, no. And there's no HOA, so I don't worry about that.
Just keep them up. Just plug them in Christmas time.
For my part, I think it's more a matter of we don't have a lot of room. And so we just actually are starting the process of saying this is our big box for all of Christmas and a box for all the outdoor lights. And we organize that and keep it all separate. So it has to go up and go over to my mother-in-law's house.
I'll put this down for me. It's a little bit more about FlavaRay. We don't take down our Christmas tree. We just leave it up.
Yeah, we wouldn't have any room if we did that.
Like, dude, that tree sits in the corner year round. You can come into my house in my living room and see it year round. It's not lit up. It's like we don't plug it in.
You guys just have a
time.
regular tree hanging out there.
Yeah. It's just a tree in my living room. It's just
hereby
another piece of furniture.
I hereby decree that tree's name is now Groot and it's a member of the family.
We got a Christmas Groot of my living room. Like the reason being is because like we just thought about it one year. It's like, why are we taking down the tree? It's a fake tree. There's no reason to take it down.
Dapple was really excited about this.
All right, yeah, we're going to stop for a second to get this dog under control. Like, if I took down the tree, I'm taking something that brings joy to everyone and suddenly making stress for myself. Like, I'm creating stress.
But do you think that perhaps maybe you're taking some of the magic out of Christmas by it being a 24/7, 365 thing?
It doesn't seem to have that effect. Like, because now, instead of it being a tree put up ceremony, it's a tree lighting ceremony. Okay, kids, we're going to light this tree. Plug in. Yay! We turn out, and the other thing that we do, we plug in the tree, and then all the other lights in the living room go out. And so our only light in the living room is the tree lights. And it's like I said, it's a big tree, so it's plenty of light. And it just makes the whole room all of a sudden turn magical. So it's just the tree lights and the TV. Like, I don't know. It just seemed to me that all the things that make our lives stressful, half of them at least are unnecessary. You know, like some of it is just us just adding stress.
Yeah.
And I think that removes a lot of the everyday joy of the things that we should be taking joy in. You know, it's like Dan said, it's part of my self-care. I think you might say that off the air. Yeah, it's part of my self-care.
Yeah. And maybe that's where we just each need to ask, like, what are the things that you're doing in a pretty unique kind of time, because maybe you're spending time away from home in somebody else's house, or you have people in your house. Like, what are you doing that nobody has really said that you need to do, that you just feel like has to happen for either your happiness or someone else's?
Yeah. Yeah. Some things that you don't like to do, you have to do. Clean the bathrooms, do the laundry. But some things you don't have to do. Or what happens a lot of time is we'll somebody comes over and we'll stop playing video games. Like, let's say, okay, we have company over, then we can't use the television for video games because they might want to watch television. That I ran into that a lot. Do you play video games, right, Dan? Video games? Are you a PC Master Race kind of guy? Or are you a console?
I have an Xbox.
Have an Xbox? Okay, there we go.
Console, man.
Console. That's wonderful.
A PC Master Race is a pretty expensive hobby.
It is. It is indeed. I just recently got my daughter. I already had an Xbox, but I recently got my daughter a PS4.
Yeah.
And then I recommend the PS4. Because that system has all of those PS4, those PlayStation games we grew up on. They're all there for download. Like, it shocked me. I could spend thousands of dollars on the PlayStation Network store, thousands, just getting old games.
Well, I'm sort of particular at the Xbox. I was gifted it from my young brother Sam, and it's one of the really main ways that I keep in touch with a couple of my brothers. So I'm sort of particular to it.
Okay. So you like the online gaming thing?
Yeah, part of it's just being able to connect with them and hang out for an hour or two and play some games together.
That's dope. I gotta do more of that. I gotta do more reaching out. I don't even give up my gamer tag. I gotta work on that. All right, Dan. This has been fun, man. I'm not gonna use up too much of your time here. I know you're out in California, or where are you actually now? You said you're visiting. Are you still in California?
Yeah, we just went to the coast. We're just like an hour and a half away.
Okay.
To some family. So I always remember this. I don't know much about him. This singer called Xavier Rudd. He has a song called "Follow the Sun," and there's a phrase in there where it says, "Take a walk to the nearest water's edge and remember your place."
Oh, wow.
So, like, whenever I go to the beach or somewhere at the edge of the water, I always remember those lyrics, because it always just seems like whatever else I got going on in my life, like, you get to the edge of, or at least for me, you get to the edge of the water and you're like, what am I doing with my life? Like,
yeah.
It's just,
like, why aren't I doing this all the time? I should be at the beach all the time.
Well, no, it's just like there's so much that I spend time on that just doesn't it just doesn't matter. So it's a good sort of renewing. Like, you get there and you're like, man, I'm just spending some time on stressing out or worrying or just about things that don't matter as much as they should. So
I really am addicted. Look at the ocean.
Close to the beach, and hopefully I'll remember my place. So.
Yeah, I feel you. All right, guys, this has been Tattoo with Children. I've been your host, FlavaRay. You can find Tattoo with Children on Facebook at Tattoo with Children. You can find us on IG at Tattoo with Children. You can find us on Twitter at Tattooed With. You can find me on Twitter at Madara Shadow. That's one word. And you can find me on Twitter at Hunter Vanguard. That's one word. You can find me on IG at Madara Shadow. You gotta get those straight because you're gonna find a different thing if you go to Hunter Vanguard, Expected Madara Shadow. They are two different people. You can find Ben, who wasn't here today, but he normally is. You can find him on IG at Black Crow Brother. You can also find him at Black Spot Tattoo Company. You can find Mike Payne at CIO Payne on IG and also at Payne.points. That's Payne spelled Payne. Dan, do you have any social media that you would care to give out, or are you just going to keep that to yourself?
No, you can find me on Instagram at Danley DeManley. So Danley, D-A Manley.
Danley DeManley at IG. And you can find also, if you liked this podcast or any of our podcasts and you'd like to hear more of those, and want to show your support and your display your pleasure, you can find us on Patreon. Just go to patreon.com/tattoo with children, and $5 gets you the bonus content. You know, I'm putting bonus content out there, and I'm making it cheap. $5. That's all you need. And get to hear some more of my inner workings if that's something you care to listen to. Dan, this has been a lot of fun. It's great to catch up with you, man. Next time you're in town, look me up, all right?
Well, for sure. Thanks. Yeah, I was bummed. I missed connecting the last time I was on. So thanks for making space for me, and you guys are doing it.
Oh man, awesome. Thank you for being on. I just like picking your brain and hearing your voice. And so yeah. Anytime we can do this, we can make it every Friday. I'll be fine with that.
Awesome. Well, Merry Christmas, and I'll look forward to connecting sometime again.
All right, happy holidays, Dan. Happy holidays to you too, my dear listener. We all love you.
Later.
Of his rap at the core is ancient. It's imported like a pack of some more observations. They're important like the fact that we're bored of fake shit. More creative, have the floor, so take it. Travel to the door is a normal